Hey, dear listeners, Brother Ed here. Before I get the show started, two things. One, again, I apologize for the delays. I'm working on it, I promise. Hand to heart. Two, I've got a new opening, something a little less trademark infringing, hopefully less trademark infringing. And I've been told, just in general, that podcast openings should be short and sweet and to the point. So I'm trying something new. Let me know what you think. Send me an email to head@headspeaks.com. Oh, that's a third thing. Right now, my headcastnetwork.com website's down, in case you haven't noticed. So any emails would need to go to head@headspeaks.com. And I'm working on trying to get a site back up. But enough about that. Let's start the show. Welcome to the newest episode of Head Speaks, your home of all things geeky. I am your host, Aaron Brotherhead Moss. Let the show begin. Hey, dear listeners, Brotherhead here. So that was my new opening. Let me know what you think. I'd like to hear all feedback. But let's go and get started with today's show. The first thing up, we bring you...
Faster than a speeding bullet.
In the great hall of the Justice League,
Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
the Justice League of America versus the Legion of Doom. This is
What's in Head's Long Box?
Dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind. The world's greatest super friends.
Yes, I realize the irony that I said that I recorded a new opening to help avoid trademark issues and problems like that. And then I have my bumpers, which are full of other theme songs and whatnot. But hopefully it's enough, short enough, each clip, wherever I play, it gets through on technicality. Anyways, enough about that. Let's go ahead and talk about the issue we're here to talk about. Yes, and I know it's been a while, so in case you've forgotten, we are talking about the Power of the Atom. This is issue 13 of Power of the Atom. The cover date was June of 1989. The on-sale date, April the 25th, 1989. The cover price was $1. The title of this was called Rattling the Cages. The writer was William Messner Loebs. Penciler, Graham Nolan. Inker, Keith Stan Wilson. Letterer, Albert Tobias de Guzman. Colorist, Nancy Houlihan. The cover was done by Graham Nolan and Keith Stan Wilson. And the editor on this bad boy was Mike Carlin. So as usual, I will start talking about the cover on this bad boy. The cover, we've got a small picture of the Atom, and he's riding a blood cell. The rest of the cover is pink with white, maybe it's surprint, I'm not quite sure, but white drawings of blood cells and other things within the bloodstream. At the bottom it says, Braving the Bloodstream. I'm assuming they did it pink because the blood, if I'm understanding from my memory of school, which has been a while, the blood inside your body's blue until it gets oxygenated through the lungs and then it turns red. But they wouldn't want to have red on the cover. One, it might overshadow his boots. And also the whole pesky Comics Code Authority may not approve of having red blood on the cover. And if it was a blue, that would clash with his costume. Not clash, but blend in with his costume, make it hard to see him. So I do like the way the cover looks. Even though I say pink's not really, I don't think would be in the bloodstream, but maybe, I mean, because he's down in microscopic size riding a blood clump. So, it's interesting. Yeah, I like the cover. It's a really nice cover. It's very much, and I'll mention this probably throughout the episode, but this entire episode or issue is very reminiscent of the movie Fantastic Voyage.
We on a mission. Slippity slide, bitches on the block in a 65. Come along and ride on that fantastic slide.
Sorry, wrong Fantastic Voyage. That's Coolio. Different Fantastic Voyage. But anyway, they also did in the movie Inner Space, which was a great movie. But anyways, we're not talking about movies. We're talking about Power of the Atom, which should have a movie. Anyways, so let's start the story itself. So the story starts out, the first couple of pages starts out with Jean talking to Norm, complaining basically about how ever since Paul's helped take out Edge on TV, he's been, going around, the cock of the walk and all that, and basically wanting to be a superhero. He's doing karate lessons, swagging around, letting the caseloads go to hell, as she says. And I guess he was mumbling in his sleep last night, according to Jean. There's not enough room in this town for both of us, Joker. So again, that little bit of power he got has kind of gone to his head and is making him want to go the superhero route, which, as Jean has said numerous times, that's what's caused her and Ray to break up. It wasn't the fact that she's a cheat. I mean, sorry about that. Sometimes my personal preferences, or not necessarily preferences, but my personal prejudices come into play. But yeah, so anyways, she's kind of complaining about what's going on with Paul to Norm. And then we cut over, speaking of Paul and Ray, we cut over to Paul and Ray fencing, and Ray showing Paul a few tricks here and there, I guess. And Paul's like, you can, give it to me, don't hold back. I can take what you're doing. And he's like, no, you know what? I didn't grow up, but I spent some time in the jungle. I became more of a warrior, and I'm trying to keep that in hold. As we've encountered in several past issues, and I've talked about, Ray's not the same Ray that he's always been. He has a harder edge now. He lived with Hiawatha and her people, so he's got a bit harder edge to him now, and he has to watch it. So because again, he's in civilization now, so he can't pull a sword out and take down the bad guy. He's got to do it in quotes like a hero, I guess. That's not quite the phrase I'm looking for, but close enough. And I do like here on the bottom of page 3, we get a flashback to Ray fighting out in the jungles, and Paul keeps telling him, well, no, you're still a scientist. You're not some, savage. You're still a decent human being. And he's like, I'm going to prove it. So he starts, attacking Ray with his fence. And as he's talking, he's like, I'm going to prove that, no matter how hard you're pressed, you're not going to turn into some bloody barbarian. And as they get, he's just whacking at him harder. And I love the between the dialogue and the images on this page, a couple pages actually, of Paul attacking Ray and just forcing Ray to fight back. And as they're fencing, Paul's like, well, you're no grim, gritty avenger with the sword, Ray. If you were, you would have saved your little people. Or at least saved your girl. What's her name? And Ray's like, Hiawatha. And at that point, Ray just loses his crap and just starts attacking him even worse. And I like here on bottom of page 5, Paul's got his sword up, his fence up, and Ray strikes at here. And Paul's like, whoa. And apparently Ray's tip came off his foil. I'm not sure I'm using the right words on this, and I may have misused words before, but.
And I love the art on this panel here this page 6, where Ray starts slashing and hacking at him. And here on the left-hand side of the page, we get a close-up of Ray's face, and he's got this maniacal look, almost looks like the Joker almost, with the way his eyes are. He's got a crazy look in his eyes, and he's got sweat beating down his head, and he's just got a Joker-type grin on his face as he just starts swiping and tearing into Paul, and Paul's doing what he can to, block Ray's foil or whatever you want to call it. Which shows that Ray, as Ray said, he lived for a while with warriors, and he got kind of that mindset himself. So as I've talked about previously, Ray isn't who he used to be. He has changed a bit. And he finally gets, Paul loses his foil, and Ray has his up next to Ray's neck, and Ray has his foil up next to Paul's neck, and Paul's like, your match, Ray? And I like here on the bottom of page 6 where Ray's got his sword up to Paul's neck, and Ray's face is just in shadows, just showing the in quotes darkness that's descended over him. I think between the writer and the artist, they did a fantastic job on this page here alone, showing the changes, in quotes, that Ray's gone through from who he used to be. And here on the next page, he's talking out and he's like, God, I almost killed you, Paul. For a second there, I totally lost control. Paul's like, no, I don't think so. If you're totally out of control, I'd be just dead. Besides, I did provoke you. And so again, and I kind of like this change, this change in the relationship between Paul and Ray.
Where just an issue or two ago, they were trying to kill each other. Now they're, buddy and hanging out, fencing. Though I do like that, Paul's trying to convince Ray that, no, you were completely normal. It wasn't that bad. You're able to hold back. And then he's thinking to himself, of course, you didn't see that look in your eye. So Paul did notice that, Ray did have that look in his eye that said he wasn't going to take that crap. And again, kind of that maniacal look I mentioned here on page 6. Just he's about ready to kill somebody. And then we got to a subplot of Ray and his publisher, with his publisher trying to guilt him or trying to convince him into going to a book signing that he doesn't really want to go to. Not book signing so much, but a party, I guess it is, that he doesn't want to go to. But she's like, tell him that there's another author that he doesn't like is going to be there. Tutti Golightly, I guess. I'm putting too much emphasis in that. Tutti Golightly. But again, there's just a little, but again, nice art here. We got a close up of Norman's face and just kind of in shadows, like, because he really hates this guy and he's going to have to go to this party even though he doesn't want to, just because his in quotes enemy's going to be there. And you can see the look on his publisher's face, like, she set it up to make sure Paul's going to be there. So again, while she's a bit of a biznatch, it was a nice play on her part, I guess. And then we get back to Ray and Paul again talking, back and forth. Paul trying to find out the ins and outs of the superhero life and what's it like to be a superhero. And Ray says that legal battle's usually better because they're quieter and more final. Paul's like, there speaks a man who's never filed an appeal. Because again, anyone that's done anything in the legal field knows that it's not always final. People have appeals they can go through, and again, sometimes I think they have too many appeal rights because it can take forever to get a, in quotes, final resolution, especially for a criminal. But it is part of our system, and it's there again to help prevent innocent people from suffering as much as possible. So whether there's too many appeals or not, it's there for a reason. So, but that's not illegal. We're not talking legal right now. We're talking the Atom, which is a lawyer. So at one time. So anyways, and then we get basically Jean getting a hold of Paul to get hold of Ray, because I guess this gets to the meat of the story where apparently the hospital needs Ray and his special expertise, if you will. And we get to the hospital where there's this lady who's a victim of Edge, who's apparently got some internal bleeding in her head, near the brainstem, it looks like. And they're able to operate on it. And they want to know if Ray can go in and do it. So again, I love when Ray changes to his costume. And again, he's standing there, and 1 second he's Ray Palmer, next minute he's the Atom. And again, the doctor's like, well, that's remarkable. Your costume appeared from nowhere. That kind of, I have the ability to transfer various amounts of my mass and weight, including my costume, into a kind of status zone. It's how I shrink. And again, so a lot of times they talk about in other issues, whenever they're dealing with a person that can grow or shrink like Ray can, they kind of, sometimes they can have a reason or how it happens. And sometimes they just don't think too about it. Don't think too hard about it because, it doesn't make sense. But I like it when they have the pseudo-rational or pseudo-science ways of explaining how it happens. It's like they give it a little work and a little bit of thought to make it happen. So, and then here we go again on top of page 12, we get Ray, aka the Atom, shrinking down onto the slide. Again, I love when they show him, he's jumping in the air and miniaturizing. And I love when they show him going from one size to another and showing the shrinking effect, if you will, or the growing effect when he's going back to his regular size. And apparently they've got a suture for him that's, barely smaller than the size of a human hair. And Ray's, comment, even this size, I can barely see it. And so he wraps around himself and he shrinks down even further and jumps into a slide, which they're able to inject into the woman. And again, here at bottom page 12, we get Ray holding onto a blood vessel going, as he's flying through sailing through the bloodstream. And again, Paul's, kind of bringing up the legalities of, the Ray performing these type of, in quotes, operations. And the doctor's like, oh, yes, he was given the official sanction to perform these procedures years ago, early on in his career as the Atom. His services here are just too valuable to waste. So, yeah, I do like that they do bring up, especially if you're a new reader of the Atom with this series, they bring up the fact of how, he's able to legally do this. He was given special sanctions and special status to be able to do these type of operations. And again, as page 13, as he's flowing along I say flying, but, riding along in the bloodstream, he rubs his hand along one of her capillary walls, and he knows a bunch of cholesterol. He's like, this stuff is waxy. It's cholesterol on the wall of her arteries. Too many French fries somewhere along the line. I hate from being in my body. So again, it's really cool, in my opinion, seeing Ray, wrong character. Seeing Ray, the Atom, inside the bloodstream, inside the human body, and seeing him ride the blood vessels. And we see him sewing up one of the vessels, and as soon as he does it, he looks over and he sees there's a whole bunch more that's just leaking blood all over into her head, which is causing her to die if they don't get it fixed. And again, there's a nice image here on page 15, the bottom of page 15. We got Ray, he's looking at the blood vessel, sewing it up, and he's like, yeah, not too bad of a job. Then he gets looking and he sees a whole bunch more. We see at least two that we can see bleeding with blood going down, escaping out of the vessels into the body itself. And as we cut outside the body, we have Paul and the doctor leaving, saying that there's an orderly or someone standing behind him. And they're commenting how, it's been a while since Ray's been in there, and they're giving him some more glucose. And apparently her signs are stable, and he's like, well, you may have more to repair than we counted on. Which, again, we find out just the page before this, and that's what's going on. There's a lot more blood vessels than he realized. So she takes Paul out to buy him a cup of coffee, and tells the orderly that I mentioned earlier, let him, there's a change. And as she walks out, he's like, you bet, Doc. Ka-chow. Which kind of tells us this is Strobe, aka Edge. And he leans in close to the woman saying, that the doc says she's in a coma, but he doesn't buy that because he's Strobe and nobody gets away from Strobe. So again, he's referring to himself in third person, which is definitely the sign of a crazy person. So he's about ready to kill her off, just again to make sure his record's clear of, as far as he's concerned, no one lives when he gets done with him. And I like, as he's talking to her, he's like, it's like this, babe. I've been using that EPG stuff I took from you to become Edge, but I ain't a major supervillain yet. But I can't figure out how half that junk works. And you're going to convince me that you were just pulling my chain? Otherwise, you're going to get hurt a lot worse than you already are. And Ray, he's back to full size, not full size, but he's back to a little more than microscopic, standing on her lip, watching Edge talk to the gal. And he can't quite make out what he's saying. I'm assuming just because the size Ray's at and the voice of a normal person's too loud for maybe his ears to pick up properly. Maybe it's just too loud and booming for him. Or maybe it's the fact that Edge is supposed to be maybe he's not talking out loud. Maybe he's kind of whispering it, talking low so Ray can't hear. I'm not quite sure why Ray can't make out what he's saying. And again, he's commenting how he ain't humiliated and killed Atom yet. And that's what happens next time he sees him. And he's like, ka-chow, ka-chow, with his finger gun thing. He's one of those stupid guys that makes the finger gun and go, ka-chow. And Ray sees it like, ka-chow? And it clicks. He's like, I know who this fool is. And all of a sudden he jumps full size and lands right in front of the Edge. And he's like, ka-chow? You're that idiot Strobe, aren't you? What's the matter with you, dummy? You coming at me like you want to kill me. Do you have a death wish or what? And he's like, you won't kill me. You're a superhero. Superheroes don't kill nobody. Wrong, mush brains. Superman and Batman don't kill because they're civilized men. I'm not. I've killed better men than you just because they threatened me once. And I'm 10 times madder at you than I was at them. And again, he pets his finger to Edge's head and goes, you're dead. You can't. You don't think so? I can hit you with the mass of a dwarf star and rip your arm off your shoulder. where I can shrink to a bullet size and drill between your eyes, then expand and blow your head to damp fragments. And Ray's like, ka-chow. And Edge is like, and he passes out on page 18. It makes me crack up every time I read it. And again, as I've talked about before, Ray used to be your average superhero. And as we talked about earlier this issue, he's changed. He's lived out in the forest and the jungles, and he became a bit of a harder individual, if you will. So like I said, I mean, yes, he's still a superhero, and yes, he doesn't like to kill if he can help it, but he does have that edge that, again, as he was telling Paul earlier, that, you know, if he doesn't watch it, he could, if he's not paying attention, not careful, he could kill somebody just because of what he's been through over the years. And so I do like that, you know, Ray, you know, again, Ray's been worrying about that, but he's using it to his advantage with Edge, who, you know, keeps coming at him. And like I said, I think Edge passes out. About this time, Paul comes running back in. He's like, Adam, what happened? Ray's like, I guess I don't have my own strength. As Edge is laying there on the floor unconscious. And then we get back to the subplot with Norman at the party, and he confronts this other writer, Tootie Patootie, or whatever his name is. And this entire, I'm just mentioning, it's not a big part of the story, but it is part of the subplot that Norman's talking to Paul, and he's kind of fuming and talking about how, you know, he's upset with this other writer and how the guy that stole some work from him. And the guy's this Tootie guy is very uppity, and he's always talking down to Paul, making Paul feel like crap. No matter what Paul does, he doesn't feel like he's good enough to this guy. And so he's working himself up. And about this time, the guy, Tootie, walks up to him. He's like, Norman, my dear boy, it's good to see you. And like, Tootie, stuff this in your yacht base and go lightly, and just knocks him out here on the bottom of page 20. Just one punch and knocks him to the ground. I love that. And they start, you know, arguing, fastest hack. And Paul kind of tries to pull apart. And I think it's go lightly, swings and hits Paul, who knocks him to somebody else, who causes him to spill his drink on a woman there. And basically they start fighting. And it's basically just like one of these comedy things where, you know, barroom brawl. And Ray's standing there watching with Gene, and he's like, my God, it's a riot. I've got to. And Gene's like, Ray, wait, this is what happens all through our marriage. We have a really nice talk. Is this really your fight? And here at the bottom of page 21, again, Ray goes from his street clothes into a superhero costume in the blink of an eye. And I like the change they've made where he can do it at full size now, instead of having to shrink down to get into his costume. And again, Ray kind of learns a little bit in this issue. Because you hear at the end that it's not always his fight. And sometimes, like I said, there's no one really in danger. Someone's got a black eye or some bruises or embarrassed tomorrow, but there's no supervillain. It's not something he needs to rush off and fight. I thought she's like, these are all adults, and it meant to realize how stupid they look and stop. You don't have to do anything. I know it's selfish and unworthy, but just once in my life, I'd like to feel that talking to me was more important to you than a fight between strangers. So Ray changes back and says, you're right, I'm off duty. So how was your day? And I like the end of here as they're sitting there clinking their champagne glasses or whatever, you know. And meanwhile, in the back, there's this big brawl. And I don't know. I don't care for Jean, again, as we've talked about before, because again, she cheated on Ray. If you're not happy in a marriage, leave. Don't cheat on your spouse. That's just a personal button to me. But and I know Ray, he's him and Jean's, you know, they're talking it out, and they're again, in quotes, friends again. But and yes, in this instance, she is correct. Ray probably doesn't need to do anything, but does he? I mean, what if it gets out of hand and someone pulls a gun, or it gets, you know, even worse, out of control? So I mean, and yes, Jean is being selfish, and again, maybe just my personal dislike for Jean because what she did to Ray. But while in this instance, yes, Ray, the atom's not needed, but that's not always the case, and I don't know. I just don't know how to put into words what I'm trying to say here. I don't like her selfishness, I guess, because while again, right now, yes, Ray or the Atom's not needed per se, but sometimes he is, and that's what she signed up for when she married him. So I mean, just saying that, well, you're a superhero and you've taken all, you always kept running away from us to fight and save people. It just annoys me. I don't know what else to say. I don't know. And we're going to end here. It says next issue, The Return of Roger Stern and Humbug. Like here we have the Atom writing, The Return of Roger Stern at the bottom of the page. It's a nice little thing there for the next issue blurb. But again, that was Power of the Atom number 13. So, what do you guys think? Did you guys like this issue? Did you guys read it? Did you guys read it when it first came out? Talk to me. Let me know what you guys think. I would love to hear from you guys. Right now, my headcastnetwork.com and stuff is down. You can always write to me at headspeaks.com, and I'll get those. So again, send me an email, head@headspeaks.com, or go to the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/headcastnetwork. Send me a message and let me know what you think of Power of the Atom 13. And that's going to be it for this episode. Next month, I'll be back with episode 14 with issue 14. And I don't know what else I'll get on there. Maybe I'm going to try to get talk with Paul Kupperberg, because he's got some stuff. He's got a Kickstarter coming out. I may try to talk with him in the next couple weeks and post that also. So we'll see. But let me know what you think. Again, head@headspeaks.com. The Facebook group is facebook.com/headcastnetwork. And I have a YouTube, which I don't do very much of. I do more on my G.I. Joe group. My YouTube channel for my G.I. Joe stuff is youtube.com/@g.i.joe_headcast. Definitely check that out. I'm doing things, a little more things. I record my Bravo teams and my regular show on there when I do those before I release them as podcast episodes. And then I've been starting to do the third Friday of the month. I think I'm going to start doing some unboxing and reviews of things. So definitely check that out. But that's going to do it for this episode of Head Speaks. Join us next month. And until then, remember, Head has spoken. Thank you for listening to another fantastic episode of Head Speaks. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, let me know. Drop me an email to head@headspeaks.com or visit our home at head.headspeaks.com. You can also visit and talk with me on Facebook and Google+, both under Head Speaks. You can also send an MP3 file with your thoughts, and I can play that on the air. And you can also get more of me on my other podcasts. Be sure to listen to Task Force X, where monthly I look at John Ossinger's Suicide Squad and Paul Kuppenberg's Checkmate comics from the 80s and early 90s. Also, over on G.I. Joe, A Real American Headcast, my podcasting friends Ryan Daly and Kyle Benning, along with myself, are looking at all of the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero comics, and related titles from Marvel and IDW. All of my headcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher, along with the respective blogs and my main page at headspeaks.com. All comments, thoughts, and opinions expressed on Head Speaks are owned wholly by the speaker of said comments and do not express the opinions of Head Speaks, unless, of course, I'm the one making the comments. Head Speaks, Task Force X, and G.I. Joe, A Real American Headcast, are all part of the Headcast family. So join us next month, another wonderful episode of Head Speaks. Until then, I'll see you in the funny pages. Good night.